Okay, so this is the video for Apple Silicon users to get the QEMU images into UTM. So these are the files that you should have been provided with by now. One is the Mininet 14.04. It's the QEMU image file version of what they provide on their website. It's not the latest edition. It's actually a legacy edition, what they call the trusty server. And the newer one doesn't work quite as well. It's not quite as reliable. So we go back to this version just to be safe. The other is called OpenDaylight. It's actually Ubuntu 18.04, and I pre-made this image with OpenDaylight pre-installed with all the features you need. So it's very plug and play. Something to note about both of these images is that they're actually running x86 OSs, and this is basically necessary because the ARM-based ones, though they would be much faster because you can virtualize them rather than emulate, the dependencies aren't quite up to par. Mininet will run and various things will run, but they all have a lot of dependencies when you want to extend the feature sets, and they just don't all work. They're not quite there yet. So we have to use the x86 emulated. So here we go. So whoops, that's the wrong one. So we're going to want to go to UTM and hit this plus sign right here. And again, we're not virtualizing, we're emulating. So hit emulate, then hit other and skip ISO boot. Continue, and then default settings are good for me, but I'll set 10. That's about all you need. Continue, and no, I will not set a shared directory. And so the first one we'll do is Mininet, and I'll just say -14 because I have another version. All right, so first for the Mininet version only, we're going to edit some settings for both, but the Mininet version, we want to go here to QEMU, and we want to deselect UEFI boot. Just for the Mininet. For the OpenDaylight, we don't have to do that, but for both, we're going to do this part. We're going to go to Network, and we're going to switch from shared network to host only. And this is for the purposes of the lab only, because basically host only means that you don't have a connection to the internet. You just have a connection on your local host. So basically you can connect between your virtual machines, but you can't go online. So if you want to use these outside of this lab, you're probably going to want to turn shared network back on. But for the purposes of this lab, we're going to keep both of them on host only. Now we're going to want to go down here to IDE drive, and we're going to right click and delete it. And then we're going to make a new one, and maybe just be sure to, if you defined a size, just to replicate that there. And we're doing Mininet first, so we'll select, you can navigate to the drive and select the correct image and then save it. And then we'll go ahead and do it again. Emulate, other, skip ISO boot, and default settings for me, 10 gigabytes is good for both. No shared directory, and then we'll just name this one OpenDaylight 2, I guess. All right, so right click and edit. And again, we don't touch the QEMU setting here. We just go to network and we change that to host only. And then we go to IDE drive, delete, and then we make a new one and we import, and we just go to where the file is located, OpenDaylight. We open that up and we save. And it takes a second, a little longer, I think, because it's actually a little bit bigger. Okay, so I'm going to cover the SSH real quick. You're not going to need to do it for OpenDaylight because OpenDaylight is just going to be running the controller. You don't actually need to copy and paste or really scroll through anything. So we're going to run this first. And it shouldn't take too long. The benefit of having these images is that they basically are just already installed, all the dependencies. You don't have to actually install these. And you don't have to really make anything. They're smaller than the size you define until you start to fill them up. So don't worry if you define like 64 gigabytes or something. It won't take that space up until you actually start filling it up. So the password and username and password for Mininet is again just Mininet for both. Mininet. Okay, now that we're logged in, and maybe just as a check, sudo service SSH status, and says start running. Okay, we're good. On the newer one, you'll see some green. It'll be really obvious, and we can actually minimize that window. So we'll bring this up here, and basically we're going to type in SSH, and we want to make sure also I forgot we want to get if config. Okay, so ifconfig gives us the IP address here, and that would be right there after inet address is 192.168.128.14. So keep note of that or record that if you have to. Generally, they're always around the same. Really the only difference. And see, it's been reassigned, so it changed. So here's the SSH command. It's just SSH mininet at the address. And you go in, you say yes, and you give it the mininet password since we're signing into mininet, which is mininet. And there you are. You're in. Okay, so other than that, really the only thing that I should mention for the for the Apple Silicon versions of these labs is that there is really no support for the graphical programs. So really the only solution to that for the last lab is you'll have to download Wireshark on the actual Mac. And that's no problem. You just download it here, and then you just select the correct one, and we'll go over that in the lab because everything else can be run from the Mininet command line. All right, that's it.